do it slowly, because clients can go to ChatGPT and get their answer. They come to you not for you to go automate all their stuff. They come to you for that guidance, the advising, and quite frankly, to be able to like text and pick up the phone. As sad as it is the reality. So don't overthink it, because if you go and you get all the shiny objects out there, you're just going to get overwhelmed. And then you're going to be like, I don't want this, So slow is my suggestion.
Welcome to Deduct This, powered by ProConnect Tax. This is where tax professionals come together to share ideas, experiences, and fresh perspectives to help you grow your practice and your future. We're glad you're here. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Deduct This with Carrie and Lexi. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Lexi. Today we're continuing the conversation all about tech, all about advisory, and we have a special guest today that is going to talk about how streamlining the two can bring so much efficiency and so much more for your clients.
We are so excited today. We have Yuri Kapilovich joining us today. He's a CPA, he's a firm owner, and he uses technology and advisory to drive efficiency and growth. Yuri, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, amazing being here. Thank you for having me on the show, and it's an honor. I always appreciate these offers when people want me to talk about stuff. It feels weird.
Well, we're so happy to have you with us today, and we first of all cannot ignore the fact that it says the Fun CPA. I love that.
Yes.
I can't wait to see that throughout our conversation today. So again, thanks for joining us. Okay, so Yuri, you have worked in both large firms and now you run your own practice. Tell us a little bit about your journey and why you left the big firm, and then how it's been since you've gone off on your own.
Yeah, sure. It's always fun, honestly, to go back to rethink and remember the journey, because a lot of times we, as like practitioners, as firm owners, we kind of just chug along, wearing 900 hats, and then forget. So great question. So my journey, I started my schooling was at Rutgers. Then I had a bunch of like ups and downs, especially at the very beginning stage of my journey, where I had an internship get revoked on me last minute. I then had my first full-time job offer get postponed on me a week before graduation. And then I had to figure out what I was doing. So all of that to say that the journey was an interesting one. And then once I got into the first firm officially, I would say was EY in Miami, actually. And I'm based in New Jersey, but went to Miami. Was there for 4 years. That was an amazing experience. Came back to New Jersey, where my family is at and everything, and then started the journey of just about a year and a half at every firm for about another 5 firms. Wow. So looking for honestly, the goal was to make partner, to do the thing that everybody wants to do, in some firm, make the money, do that. But my thing was I always would butt heads with the old school mentality of a lot of the partners. And for me, it was just, hey, I just want to take care of the staff. I want to do that. I don't think focusing on hours when you're super efficient is really that big of a deal. But that's where we disagreed a lot of times. Fast forward all of that. The last firm, 2021, I was making $150,000 there as a manager. I probably would have been just super shy of being senior manager. A friend of mine was selling me his practice, $100,000. I've been wanting to leave on my own. This was like the opportunity, like, hey, yes, let's do it. $100,000, I can work with that. And the long story short version of that is I give notice 5 days after he gets sued by his partner. He's not allowed to give me any of that 100,000, but I already gave notice. And so now here I am trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I'm happy to go into that too.
Gosh, yeah, that's amazing. I would love to hear more about what
I want to know more.
Yeah,
happy to.
Exactly.
I can jump.
Dude, it was like the book that just like ended.
I know.
With what happened?
Cliffhanger. Yeah.
100%.
So then I say, what am I going to do now? I had a 3-year. My son was 3 years old at the time. Wife was not pregnant yet, but shortly thereafter was pregnant with our daughter. And so life gets crazy, and when you quit. You got health insurance, you got all those things that I call golden handcuffs. Everybody knows about those, that keeps you locked in. And so, I was like, how am I going to make money? So the only thing I knew is I had at that point, like 11, 12 years of big firm experience working on multi-million-dollar, 1040s and returns and all that stuff. So I had the knowledge. So I said, all right, I can basically contract for now and figure it out. found a firm in the city in Manhattan, and started taking the bus there. I was doing that 3 days a week. It was bringing me probably like $4,000 to $6,000 a month, just charging 75 to $100 an hour. And I tell every single person, and if you're listening to this and you're on the precipice or debating leaving the firm, just do that. You have the skill set to at least charge that, and it'll get you to where you want to be. And unplanned. All of that was unplanned. On the other 20 hours of the week, I was just building my firm slowly, methodically, with the end goal being what people call a lifestyle firm, which, just not going crazy, working crazy, but having the right kind of clients and being deliberate about selecting them.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we were talking a little bit before this, and you mentioned one thing, and we're hearing this more and more as we talk to pros, is the lifestyle firm that you were just talking about. It's not about doing billable hours, et cetera. I mean, that's the old school mentality. And unfortunately, when I say old school, tons of people are still doing that, right? And 100%. Lots of firms and things like that. But the world is changing. And, even with like AI and technology and things like that, is people will have to realize that task time is going to be different. And it's the work that you do is still very valuable. It's not about how long it takes you to do that work. And so those are some of the topics that I'd love to talk about, because I know that stuff is really important to you. But let's first talk about that idea of a lifestyle firm. What does that mean to you exactly? And how did you do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So everything stemmed from back then and to this day around my schedule, right? So again, 3-year-old at the time when I first launched my firm, they require a lot of attention, a lot of time. Obviously, I mean, he was in daycare, so of course during the day was easier. When my daughter came into the picture, it got obviously more complicated. I got 2 kids. She's baby. He's 4. She's an infant. And so now my time, they're coming home from school. They require their needs. I simply cannot work, like just sheer schedule wise, if I'm going to be there. And my wife is also an optometrist, so she doesn't have the ability to work remotely. So, it's like she's in the office doing her thing, so somebody's got to pick up the kids, somebody's got to do that and all this stuff. So again, the timeline, the only other way around that is like, babysitter or something like that. So that's where the initial need for that came from. Like that's where the need for having the lifestyle firm came from. Simply, it was my lifestyle and what I needed at the time. So it was, how do I make those two things work? And the only way to do that at the time, is being very selective with my clients, making sure I don't just go for volume and just take on, which a lot of folks do. It's what's built into our brains. Take on a bunch of $300 tax returns. Go. And that's to me, even at the very beginning, my minimum was 800. Wow. Yeah, and now it's actually 2,000. That's my minimum now. And again, I build those things in place to have the block. To then, if you don't want to work with me, that's fine. That's just more time for myself. So hopefully I answer your question.
No, that's great. I love that. I want to talk about 2,000 your minimum. That could be scary. So talk a little bit about switching to that. And I mean, the fear of, how did you get out there and source clients that were willing to pay that? And what was included in that? Like, what was the value that you were providing?
So another really good question. And over the time, so I'll go back for a second to that story about going on the bus to Manhattan. When I was on the bus, that is actually when my LinkedIn journey began. So this is probably like July or August of 2021. And I just started posting on the bus. I never, to this day, never posted anything like, hey, hire me. I do taxes. Like I was never the intent. I'm not interested in that. I was always posting valuable stuff. But initially it was towards people who were like me, staff, seniors, managers in public accounting firms, giving them tips. I called it bus thoughts. And literally it was bus thoughts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever I'd be on the bus, I would do that, interact with some people, get to the office, do my work and whatever. And over time that evolved into many things. And just because people saw that I was very authentic with my posting, they connected with me. And so that, where I'm going with all this, is unintentionally created, this network of people that just said, hey, I want to somehow work with you. This would be like financial advisors, attorneys, all these folks who hang out on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I'd say, hey, can we just chat? And then we became referral, like not partners, but just literally friends a lot of times. I've since then been doing networking events of my own. I've created, YouTube channels, all that kind of stuff. And so they would just come out to my events and we would literally just hang out and kind of party somewhat and, and do that. And then, the business came after that. But primarily my firm grew with just word of mouth referrals from clients, and then folks who just sent me business through LinkedIn. So that's how that. And to the point, I think the one thing I didn't get to was the 2000 being scary. Yes, 2000 is scary. Over time, it grew as my workload grew. My workload would grow, and then I would say, okay, like, am I happy with these kind of clients? Yes, then fine, continue. And then I started seeing that the lower end clients would be taking up so much more of my time than the higher end clients.
Yeah.
And it's a disservice to the higher end clients. I fired probably in 1 year, probably about 10 to 15 clients. Just trade off this, just limit the list, who's below this amount, and that's it. And obviously fired makes it sound like aggressive. It was just like, hey guys, and it was a soft one, like, hey, I'm just going to send you over to this person. If you need anything, let me know. Obviously I'm around. I still talk to most of them, but that was one way to do it. Now, what's included in 2000 is your very basic tax return. I mean, just a W-2 only. It is very rare that somebody would actually take me up on that. Mm-hmm. So it would have to come from somebody saying, a trusted source saying, hey, you need to work with him because he works with me if it's a financial planner. And they'll say, hey, just so you know, his minimum fee is 2000. Like, they're doing the selling on my behalf a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And if it's not those folks, then it's my clients who are going to their friend, hey, you got a business, so you need to use Yuri. And whatever, if you need bookkeeping or not, but you need to use Yuri. He's always picking up the phone. He's always available. But his fee is minimum 2000, just so you know. And that's it. Like, if they don't want to reach out, great. I really don't care at that point. But so, and then as far as my tiers go, there's, just the tax return prep only. There is quarterly consulting, advising, as you mentioned, advisory. And then there is the monthly package, which includes bookkeeping as well, to everything else. I've talked a lot. So
no, that's great. That's great information. Well, no, it's totally relevant because there's a lot of pros realizing that you're exactly right, that most of their time is being taken up by these smaller returns and the value's not there, right? And so it's a very relevant topic right now.
And the toughest thing to do, I tell people this all the time, if, sometimes people ask for my advice as like, hey, I want to start my firm or whatever it is, just because of the LinkedIn stuff that I've been posting on. And my biggest advice is, be selective, do the contracting first, because if you're not selective in the start and you start just taking for volume, it is extremely difficult to go from charging 300 to 800 or 300 to 1,000. You're going to leave a sour taste in people's mouths. And to just let them go, I mean, you have to be very careful, and you may burn a lot of relationships that, maybe would have referred you someone else who might fit the bill. So all I have to say is just be cautious with, how you kind of market yourself and who you take on initially, even.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I think that's so valuable. I mean, we were literally just talking about this morning of a conversation that Lexi had with somebody. Same idea is that she was not charging enough and she didn't necessarily understand her value and they didn't understand how to talk to somebody about what she wanted to charge. And it is hard because I do think that I hear this all the time, that people are working with some of these, again, the lower cost kind of clients, and they always take up the most amount of time. And we hear this pervasively. This is not a one-off thing. And I think it's great to be able to identify who it is that you want to work with, what it is that you bring to the table, be able to articulate what that value is. And it's not based on hours, it's based on value. And say, this is what I'm going to charge. And I do believe that people appreciate that, because if you go in knowing, hey, I'm going to work with Yuri and it's going to be at least $2,000. I didn't have in my mind it was 200, right? And so the 2,000 doesn't seem, out of place. I know what I'm going to get when I'm going in there. So I think that's a great piece of advice. So I want to pivot a little bit. And so I know through your journey, kind of, again, we were talking about value and hours and things like that. And that kind of gets you into technology. And, I'd love to understand, as you sort of bring on these new clients and investigate sort of world of technology in order to become more efficient, to make sure that, you make all the kids' activities and be able to pick them up. I'm assuming you have to really rely on technology. Can you tell me a little bit about like your stack and how you think about bringing on new technology?
Yeah. And I know we were chatting about this before, so I'll start at the beginning, which is to say, for me personally, and I know some people's thoughts on this vary. For me personally, the tech and all that stuff and the automation and all of this, ease of use and all those kinds of things came later. I started my firm, Excel, Google Drive, for sharing documents, and, Drake tax, which, whatever. Everybody has their different opinions on it. I won't click, but it was cheap, and it was cheap at the time, and quite frankly, it's still cheap. And, maybe eventually it's time to upgrade, but that's a different topic. That has lasted me for a while, and I was very hesitant to do anything, different. Again, we're all kind of stuck in our ways. It was working. I was I was doing maybe $150,000 in gross revenue with using that, and still fine. It had kinks in the system. It had issues, of course, but for the most part, clients were fine with it. Then the first thing I implemented was TaxDome, for like tax document exchange. That was pretty revolutionary, for me, because before that I was doing DocuSign, send the form on DocuSign, the client signs, send my engagement letter in DocuSign, they sign. But I was still doing that even with TaxDome on the engagement letter side. And my billing was done through QuickBooks. So a lot of manual stuff I had to do. But also remember, because I was so selective with my clients, I didn't have that many clients. So at the time, in 2022, probably about a year in, maybe a year and a half in, I maybe had like 70 total clients. So it wasn't like crazy, right? So again, it's one of those things where if the pain of it is high enough, you'll do something about it.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
That is just how we as accountants operate. Mm-hmm. Some people are, I know from being on LinkedIn, I know a lot of people who are not like that. I know a lot of people who are at the front end doing all this stuff to prevent that. That's great. I don't operate that way. So what happened was as I grew and as it hit 100, then it started really hitting annoying parts where my wife was helping me out making engagement letters. This was probably the year that I changed over to something, called Anchor. I don't know if you're familiar with Anchor, but it's basically an engagement letter platform that also does the billing. Everything is automated. And now I switched. This was, by the way, November or December of 2024. So fairly recent. So TaxDome was 23. The next one was 24. Was to implement Anchor. And so that's where my billing is done at. So billing, engagement letters, I don't need DocuSign anymore. Once it gets approved, then the bill happens and I can collect 50% up front. That was another big change for me. And now I don't have to do QuickBooks anymore. So I don't have to go send the invoices out in QuickBooks. I don't have to send engagement letters through, updating them in Word doc and then doing DocuSign. So that was a big changes. And I think, really mostly that's kind of the biggest tech differences and changes that I've made that have definitely helped me out with, my time.
So what about, very interesting. What about AI? So big changes specifically in the last year. How are you incorporating AI into that whole process?
So right now I don't do a ton with it. The one thing I'm mainly incorporated, this was fairly recently, is that it's called Abacor. It's a note taker for my meetings. That has been huge for me, and also very favorably looked upon from my clients. So I like that. It looks professional. After the meeting is done, we send that over. TaxDome is currently implementing something with the equivalent of like the reading in open item lists, creating open item lists from PDF, stuff like that. The main thing for me with AI, I'm not against it. For certain things, I think it's very favorable. Sometimes I just worry, especially when it comes to putting tax returns in there, and very sensitive client data, that concerns me a little bit because I don't know where it's going. Mm-hmm. When you put a tax return in there, a 1040 with all the personal information, yes, it's going to extract all of the open items, but where's the return going? So that's part of it.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of people have, a similar journey or starting to do a similar journey, right? Is that lots of stuff was manual. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard an accounting professional ever say that they don't use Excel in order to do some of their stuff, regardless of what their tax software is, whether they use QuickBooks or not to implement it. And then I am seeing, it's interesting to see what what people are using AI for, like where they're navigating the little pieces and parts. The note taking is game changing. I couldn't agree more. Is that I've always been a handwritten note taker, but to
Me
be able
too.
to just have this analysis that's not doesn't have a perspective on it, like a skewed perspective, which is what your notes do, right? To just
Yeah.
pull that out. I can see why your clients would love that, to be like, this is what we talked about. This is the follow-up items. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. I think that's an amazing thing to be able to do. And then even better is to be able to store it so that when you go back and have that conversation with
Yeah.
Joe or Bob or Mary or whoever it is, you can be like, our last meeting, we discussed these things, right? As opposed to try and find the piece of paper back in your notebook.
Oh my
which I
God.
think is-
I mean, yeah,
which is
it's funny.
amazing.
I still got the notebook right here.
Yeah,
You know,
I do too. I still have it.
but even my chicken scratch and my handwriting is awful. So and then it's like my chicken scratch later, I don't even know what I wrote. So if I didn't immediately like go in and make the notes into the email or into whatever, there's no shot I'm getting that back in a concise and understandable order. So yeah, this was an absolute game changer for sure.
Yeah, I love that. What are other things that you're wanting to? What do you think you'll try next in AI? Just out of curiosity, have you already started kind of pondering?
Yeah, the next thing is that so there's some stuff out there. I think I forgot the name of the Soraban and also Juno or June or something like that. So they do the whole like what I was referring to before, open item creation of lists from a tax return uploaded into the system. They do a bunch of other stuff. Then once the documents are obtained, they also there's an AI agent checking all that stuff and inputting it into the tax software. I'll probably toy around with that to see, because the open item creation is a huge game changer also, because that's a big chunk of time, and chasing down clients for that information is awful. So anything that helps me in that regard is great.
Yeah, cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit. I love that you were really honest and you said, look, like I've been doing things a little bit the hard way or the manual way up until the last 2 years. I think that's majority of people, to be honest with you. We've talked to a lot of people, and no matter what age or whatever, it can be scary. I love that you said though that you've seen the value in bringing it into your practice. And so can you talk to your peers a little bit about how do you balance the automation with maintaining still that personal touch that I know is really important to you?
Yeah. I think the main thing, honestly, is there's a couple things in there, but the main thing is that I really encourage people not to do is don't overthink it. Mm-hmm. Like, don't sit there. Like, I know there's folks out there online, super active, suggesting a lot of tech, a lot of different things out there, a lot of things that if you watch any of those videos, and I have been guilty of watching one or two, I get overwhelmed. And you so quickly get so overwhelmed by all these options that you forget that everything is fine. You're doing all right. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily need all those things per se to get started, but they're very helpful down at the end. So to kind of bring that to a thought here is do it slowly. Clients value, there's a reason why clients, because clients can go to ChatGPT and get their answer. Clients can go on Google and get their answer. Clients can go to, what's it called? TurboTax or whatever, or H&R Block and get their taxes done. They come to you not for you to go automate all their stuff. They come to you for that guidance, the advising, and quite frankly, to be able to text and pick up the phone. That's honestly, you ask what value I bring to anybody paying $2,000. I'll pick up my phone, and I respond to emails. That as sad as it is the reality. So if you bring it all together, you put it all together, it's protect your time, right? That's very important. Whatever it is, you don't have to go working crazy 80-hour weeks like you did at the big firms when you have your own. So protect your time, get the clients to align with that. Get the clients to line up with your goal of protecting your time. And then as an added bonus, whatever technology you think you want to try it out in parts and slowly. Because if you go and you get all the stuff that's shiny objects out there, you're just going to get overwhelmed and it's not going to work. It's not going to work perfectly. Let's put it that way. And then you're going to be like, I don't want this, so slow is my suggestion.
Yeah. I think that's true. I'm definitely guilty. I mean, I'm very guilty of this. I love to watch TikTok, watch YouTube to learn about the latest and greatest. Every night I'm trying something new because I was promised, right? In social media, it will do this. And then I go use it. I'm like, that's about 25% true, right? As you play with it and things like that. And you're right. The more technology you introduce, they don't always work together either. And then there's also the idea of garbage in, garbage out. So just because you have great technology, if you don't have the right things going into it, you're not going to have the right things going out of it. So I think that's I think slow and steady is great. I love what is the problem you're trying to solve? Figure out what the solution is, not what is this shiny object that you're hearing about, but really make sure it's going to work with your firm. Because at the end of the day, I think it's about trust and relationships with your clients, because you're right. People can self-serve. And so using a tax pro, it's a luxury, but it's an important luxury, especially if you have a business and things like that, to be able to call somebody and go, hey, I saw this thing. Because the amount of times I do this to my husband, I go, call our guy and see if we can do this because I saw some random thing. And to be able to have that voice on the other end, that authority of going, yes, that sounds great, but you actually can't do that because of these specific reasons why.
And you can find those reasons online, and you can get to those things online. You can figure it out. But having that person to say, hey, can you just double check this for me? Is so crucial and so important. And to your point, how many times have you got that shiny thing, like you said, and it's like not doing, like you say, it was over advertised or whatever it was, or in our situation just makes it worse. Stick to the basics, do good client work, good client service, and pick up the phone. And I also think that, now I remember what I was going to say. I also think that when the main issue people often try to solve is that they're overwhelmed, overworked, and have too many clients. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, all this tech is necessary because that's where you are at. And so to me, this is why I always say, start with the end. If you have, I promise most people listening, if you had 70 clients and you were grossing $160,000 a year at 70 clients, are you really going to need, all this tech? Right? That's the thing. But if you have 600 clients and you're grossing 150,000, you're going to need all that tech, because
there's other problems there. If you have 600 clients and you're grossing 150,000,
and believe me, it's out there.
Oh, I know.
It's definitely out there.
We know it's out there for sure. And I love to wrap this up too, is that, it's not that technology is not crucial, because that is where everything's headed, but it's the fact that pairing it with the human element is even more crucial and critical to stay relevant, to amplify everything that you're already doing as an amazing CPA and tax professional. And so thank you so much for just sharing your knowledge and your journey with us today. It's been fantastic. And Carrie, do you have anything that you would like to add, or?
Yeah, no, Yuri, I really enjoy this because I actually think a ton of people are going to really relate to your journey and kind of how you've gone through this process. And I think you've given some really tangible, I love the kind of go slow, understand what your needs are. I love that idea. And I love the lifestyle firm idea. I'm hearing it more and more. And I truly believe that it will resonate with people. And so thank you for sharing that with us today. We appreciate talking to you.
I hope so. I hope it brings everybody value, at least someone. And thank you guys so much for having me on the show.
That's it for the episode today of Deduct This with Carrie and Lexi. For more insights from Yuri, you can follow him on LinkedIn or visit the Fun CPA online. Until next time, thanks guys. Thanks, Yuri.
Thanks for being part of Deduct This, powered by ProConnect Tax. If today's conversation gave you something new to think about, visit accountants.intuit.com for more insights and resources made for professionals like you. We'll be right here, helping you turn expertise into opportunity.